Stephen A. Smith didn't mince words. Caitlin Clark walked away. After being left off Team USA's Olympic roster, the sport's biggest draw made a quiet yet seismic decision, one that speaks louder than any press conference ever could. Her exit wasn't about ego or entitlement. It was about principle. Clark's absence shines a harsh light on the entrenched favoritism and gatekeeping within women's basketball, where legacy often outweighs logic and popularity is treated like a threat. While veteran comfort zones stayed intact, the sport's most bankable star opted out, knowing that her silence would echo far louder than her participation ever could.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Clark's withdrawal is more than personal, it's structural. It exposes the broken incentives that continue to stifle growth in women's basketball, where outdated hierarchies are protected at the cost of new audience engagement. Her absence from the Olympic stage isn't just a missed opportunity. It's a miscalculation that puts the league's global aspirations at risk. Without her, the sport loses not just a player, but its best ambassador for expansion, relevance, and economic momentum. The announcement hit like a brick. Caitlin Clark, the most watched, most talked about, most bankable star in women's basketball, is out, not just off the Olympic roster. She's walked away from Team USA entirely. And the person confirming it? Stephen A. Smith on national television, throwing the whole situation into the spotlight and calling for what it is, a failure of leadership strategy and basic business sense. Clark didn't scream. She didn't post cryptic messages. She didn't do a dramatic press tour. She just walked away, quietly, decisively, and with that one move, she said more than a dozen interviews ever. This isn't just a basketball decision. It's a message, one that's now reverberating through every layer of the sport. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just quit playing for Team USA. She quit playing along. After months of being targeted, overlooked, and forced to play through fouls that barely drew whistles, Clark was then hit with the biggest insult yet, not being selected for the Olympic roster. This, after single-handedly pulling women's basketball out of the background and into prime-time national conversation. The decision wasn't just disappointing. It was strategic, just not in the way fans hoped. It was a choice that protected egos, guarded old systems, and showed the world exactly how resistant the league still is to change. Clark, who brought in record-breaking TV numbers and filled arenas coast to coast, was treated like an outsider. Her popularity was downplayed, her impact minimized. She became a threat, not because of what she did wrong, but because of how fast and how wide she rose. And now, the price of that resistance is clear. The one player who was carrying unprecedented momentum into the international spotlight has stepped away. And not just from a roster spot, from the entire process. Gone. Done. Opting to rest instead of sit quietly on the bench of a team that doesn't value her place in the sport's evolution. As Stephen A. didn't mince words. He called it what it is, a failure rooted in politics, favoritism, and a stunning lack of vision. When you leave Caitlin Clark off a roster headed to the biggest global stage women's basketball we'll see in 4 years, you're not making a competitive choice. You're making a political one. And the consequences? Massive. Her withdrawal is a domino effect waiting to happen. Because it doesn't just expose a rift between athletes. It exposes an entire system. One that still favors veteran comfort over league growth. One that rewards gatekeeping over innovation. And one that sees a generational talent as disruptive instead of transformative. Let's be honest. The fans are watching. The numbers don't lie. Clark brings the eyeballs. She brings the ticket sales. She brings in fans who never cared about women's basketball until now. She makes networks change their schedules. She moves merchandise like nobody else. And still, she was treated like an expendable piece in a league struggling to modernize. Her exit from Team USA is now a turning point. It forces people to ask, who is women's basketball really for? The legacy players protecting their spot? The committees clinging to old systems? Or the new generation that actually wants to grow? Because let's not forget, Clark isn't just talented. She's strategic. Walking away wasn't weakness. It was leverage. She knows what she brings to the table. And she's not interested in pretending otherwise. Her decision to prioritize rest over being a pawn sends one clear message. She knows her worth. And that worth isn't just about basketball. It's about business. This is an athlete who boosted every metric the league has been chasing for years: attendance, sponsorships, engagement, the kind of numbers marketing departments dream about. And yet, instead of embracing her rise, the league and its leadership try to contain it, try to clip her wings in the name of process and seniority. That's not just a missed opportunity. That's a self-inflicted wound. The racial and cultural dynamics underneath this are real. Let's not sugarcoat it. Many fans saw this coming. The old guard of women's basketball, players like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Swoops, have made veiled and not-so-veiled comments downplaying Clark's rise. Their tone hasn't been supportive. It's been defensive, protective of an era that feels threatened. And when a younger, whiter, more mainstream-friendly star starts rewriting the narrative, the pushback is immediate. Clark didn't create that dynamic, but she's clearly aware of it. And her silence hasn't been passive. It's been surgical. She hasn't thrown anyone under the bus, even when she's been pushed, fouled, overlooked, and questioned. But walking away from Team USA, that's her first real statement. And it lands with force. Because it's not just a personal decision. It's a reflection of what's broken. The sport wants growth, but it doesn't want to let go of control. It wants new fans, but it doesn't want to challenge the internal culture that chases them away. And most of all, it wants mainstream success without giving credit to the player actually delivering it. That disconnect is now front and center. Caitlin Clark was the bridge between women's basketball and a whole new demographic. Young fans, casual fans, male fans, corporate sponsors, international media. She's the most visible athlete the sport has had in years. And they let her walk. That's not just bad optics. It's a complete misreading of how modern sports. Star power isn't a luxury anymore. It's a requirement. Every major sports league in the world understands this. The NBA didn't get global by clinging to tradition. They leaned into stars. The NFL builds entire marketing campaigns around personalities. Women's basketball? It benched the one player who could put it on the world stage. And now the fallout begins. Fans are furious. Sponsors are confused. Even casual viewers are asking how it's possible that the biggest name in the sport isn't going to the Olympics. It's not about wins and losses anymore. It's about identity. And right now, women's basketball is at risk of losing its most valuable one. What happens next depends on whether the league is willing to face itself. Because Clark's withdrawal is a mirror. It reflects every flaw the league has been ignoring. Its resistance to new energy, its double standards, its internal toxicity. And unless those issues are addressed head-on, this won't just be a one-off moment. It'll be the start of a long, painful decline. Clark isn't going away. Her influence isn't shrinking. If anything, stepping away only sharpens her brand. It proves she's not desperate. She's deliberate. She's not begging for inclusion. She's demanding value. And fans are behind her, louder than ever. Her departure has become a rallying cry. Not just for how she was treated, but for how the entire sport is being managed. It's a call to action to clean house, break old systems, and finally treat the business of women's sports like a business. If this was a test of power, Clark passed. And the league? It failed in real time, on a very public stage. Let us know what you think. Was Clark right to walk away? Did Team USA make the biggest mistake in recent Olympic memory? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this if you're watching this disaster unfold in real time, and subscribe for more honest breakdowns of every power play, PR failure, and off-court implosion in the world of sports and pop culture. Because this story isn't ending anytime soon. It's just getting. The silence after Caitlin Clark's decision was louder than any buzzer. No press tour. No angry tweets. No teary-eyed interviews. Just a clean, calculated walk away from Team USA. And whether people want to admit it or not, that silence was because this isn't just about a player skipping a tournament. This is about what happens when the most marketable star in women's basketball says, "I'm good," and sits the bench on purpose. This is what it looks like when the system finally pushes too far, and the player everyone was counting on to carry the sport just steps back. Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back when he dropped the news. And why would he? He's watched the same game we all have. The politics, the favoritism, the double standards. So when he confirmed Clark had officially quit Team USA after the Olympic roster snub, it was less of a shock and more of a gut punch. Not because we didn't see it coming, but because we did. And no one in power did anything to stop it. Clark had been hinting at this moment for months in the most nonverbal, professional, team-oriented way possible. She never started drama. She never took shots. But the facts were stacking up, and anyone paying attention could see the cracks forming. Game after game, she was fouled hard, elbowed, body-checked. No whistles. No protection. Refs swallowed their whistles, and the league swallowed its spine. Meanwhile, older players, some of them now part of the Olympic decision-making process, openly questioned whether Clark had earned anything. Like viewership, like attention, like her literal jersey. And while Clark stayed quiet, the tension wasn't. Her fans were vocal. Her peers divided. And the league? Caught somewhere between embracing the future and clinging to the past. So when Team USA officially left her off the Olympic roster, it was more than a final straw. It was a public confirmation that politics had officially overruled progress. Clark didn't just lose a spot on a team. Women's basketball lost the very momentum she had built. Let's be real here. Caitlin Clark is a once-in-a-generation athlete, not just in talent, but in impact. She brings with her something that can't be coached or taught. Eyeballs, viewers, sponsors, fans who are new, curious, and ready to buy tickets. She was a lightning strike the sport had been waiting for. And instead of building around her, they benched her. This isn't just a sports mistake. It's a business catastrophe. There's not a single metric where Clark doesn't deliver. From TV ratings to merch, sales to arena sellouts. She is the moment, and the Olympic roster was the perfect place to amplify that. Think about what it could have meant. The USA jersey, the global audience, the cross-cultural reach, a showcase of where women's basketball is going. But instead, they leaned into familiarity, into comfort, into a roster that may have experience but doesn't have buzz. And now, Clark's gone. Not injured, not unavailable, just done. Because she saw exactly what this was. And she wasn't going to be the token young star getting dragged along for someone else's legacy tour. What's worse? The silence from the league, from the selection committee, from the veterans. No explanation, no accountability, just a quiet hope that the news cycle would move on. But it hasn't, because the fans aren't having it. They see what's going on. They saw how Clark was used for views and headlines, only be discarded when it came time to award opportunity. And now, they're questioning everything. Is this really about earning it? Or is it about gatekeeping? Is this really about team chemistry? Or is it about keeping power in the hands of those who already have it? Veterans like Diana Taurasi and Cheryl Swoops have been vocal critics of Clark's rise. And while their resumes are legendary, their comments have raised eyebrows. The passive-aggressive digs, the talk of paying dues, the subtle undermining of her impact. It's become clear that parts of the old guard aren't interested in making room at the table. They're trying to protect it. Clark didn't bite. She never clapped back. She played through it. She showed up. And when they locked the doors, she walked away. That's not weakness. That's leverage. Because Caitlin Clark knows what she brings to the game. And more importantly, she knows what happens when she's not there. You can already feel the shift. The Olympic buzz feels flatter. The coverage feels thinner. Because the one person who could have pulled in a new generation of viewers is out. Her quiet exit is a louder protest than any statement she could have made. It says, you want my talent, my draw, my reach, but not my presence. You want the benefits without the credit. And I'm not playing that game. Let's talk about the economic side of this, because it matters. Clark sells out arenas in away games. She boosts ticket sales by thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. When her games are on TV, ratings go up, sponsors follow her. She's not just a basketball player. She's an economic. Leaving her off the Olympic roster doesn't just hurt the team. It hurts the league. It hurts global growth. It hurts partnerships. It's a short-term loyalty play that costs long-term vision. And Clark knows that. She knows the numbers. She sees the marketing sheets. She knows what her name means to networks, advertisers, and merchandise buyers, which is why her quiet exit wasn't emotional. It was strategic. She didn't pout. She pulled out, because she understands that her value doesn't lie in acceptance. It lies in absence. You feel her not being there. You see the missed opportunity. You realize just how much the league was riding on her back, and how easily they thought they could cut her out of the frame. But they can't, because the spotlight doesn't move on from Caitlin Clark. It follows her. Whether she's on a court, on a couch, or on a break, her absence speaks volumes. And right now, it's speaking louder than any highlight reel coming out of Team USA's camp. The question now isn't why did Clark walk away? It's how did they let it get this bad? How did a sport that needed her so badly treat her like an optional extra? How did an Olympic roster become more about protecting feelings than representing the best? How did women's basketball, in its biggest moment, choose tradition over transformation? Clark saw all of it, and rather than play along, she made a choice. She drew a line. And now the league has a decision of its own, because they can't ignore the fallout. They can't pretend this is business as usual, not when fans are angry, not when sponsors are asking questions, not when the most valuable name in the game isn't on the court. Women's basketball had the chance to evolve, to finally lean into the energy, the relevance, the momentum, and instead it chose hierarchy. And Caitlin Clark said, no thanks. Her withdrawal from Team USA is bigger than one roster. It's a wake-up call, a mirror held up to a system that still hasn't figured out what to do with success when it doesn't follow the usual script. And now that the silence has settled, here's what's left. A league exposed, a roster that feels incomplete, and a star who, by walking away, just made the biggest move of her career. There's no move-on moment after this. Not when the biggest name in the game, the one player who brought women's basketball to the forefront of national conversation, just got iced out and walked away. Caitlin Clark's quiet but deliberate exit from Team USA is going to live in the shadow of every game played without her. Every time someone asks, why aren't more people watching? Well, there's your answer. She wasn't just left off a team. She was left out of the vision. And what's worse, the people in charge thought they could do it without consequences. They thought they could bench Clark and the fans would still show up, that viewers would still tune in, that sponsors would still throw money at a league that just sidelined its most bankable star. They thought she'd take the hit, play along, smile through it, and wait her turn. She didn't. She stepped back, took her power with her. And now the Olympic roster looks like exactly what it is, a list that was more about protecting history than building a future. It's wild to even say this out loud, but here we are, the player who broke viewership records, who made casual fans care about women's basketball, who got people talking about WNBA games on ESPN in June, was not only left off the Olympic team, but quietly exited the whole system. And people are still trying to figure out how this happened. Let's be real. It didn't just happen. It was built, slowly, systemically. Clark was fouled harder, scrutinized more, protected less. She was downplayed by legends. She was talked over in interviews. Her teammates had to answer for her popularity. Her opponents turned every game into a statement. And the league? They let it slide, because checking Clark might ruffle feathers, but protecting her would threaten power. Every hit she took, literal or verbal, was a test, and the league failed it every single time. It all added up until it didn't, because Clark did what almost no one expected. She used her silence as a shield. She let the numbers talk, and when those numbers still weren't enough, she walked away. That kind of quiet power, it scares people, because it's not loud, it's not messy, it's not looking for validation. It's just gone, and now everyone has to deal with what's left. And what's left is a team missing the one person who could have taken the Olympics from a standard tournament to a global showcase for what women's basketball could be. Not just a sport, but a movement. Not just a roster, but a revolution. And instead, we got business as usual. Clark doesn't owe the system her time. She doesn't owe it her brand. She doesn't owe it loyalty. Because when it had a chance to support her, protect her, elevate her. It chose to shrink her. So she shrunk the room by leaving it. Let's talk legacy now. Because that's what this is about, right? The legacy of veteran players. The experience that gets tossed around as a reason to overlook impact. The chemistry that's only convenient when it keeps the hierarchy intact. Clark wasn't given a chance to build that legacy. Not because she couldn't, but because her presence disrupted the one already in place. And disruption is scary. Especially when now the league has a branding crisis on its hands. Because how do you sell the biggest stage of women's basketball without the biggest name in it? How do you explain to viewers why the face of your league isn't playing in the most high-profile tournament the sport has? How do you tell sponsors that growth is a priority when you've just sidelined the only player actually growing the audience? You don't. You just hope people don't notice. But they do. They're already noticing. And the damage? It's already done. Clark won't disappear. She'll rest, reset, and return stronger. That's not the question. The real question is whether the system that lost her can survive the hit. Because it wasn't just about one roster spot. It was about everything that spot represented. She was the story. She still is. And by stepping away, she didn't lose anything. She gained control. Now it's on the league to decide what it wants more. A safe, familiar structure that preserves the past, or a bold, unapologetic future led by players who change the game whether you're ready for it or not. So where do you stand? Was Clark right to pull the plug? Did Team USA just bury its Olympic hype? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like if you've been watching this chaos unfold. And subscribe if you're here for more hard truths, messy fallout, and the untold stories behind the biggest moments in sports and pop culture. Because this moment, it's not going away. It's echoing. And the silence from Clark is louder than ever.